Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry, I'm thinking YouTube is trying to take over. Anyway, welcome to Beyond the Outer Realm, the sister show of the Outer Realm, which is on Wednesday and Thursday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. We are broadcasting live on United Public Radio Network 105.3 FM from the Gulf Coast, 107.7 FM from New Orleans. Today, I have the pleasure of welcoming back dear friend Jason Hewlett. You guys have seen him on here a few times. The last time he was on, he talked about Ogopogo, and today it's going to be one of my favorites because there's not a lot of documentaries on this. And I mean, you're hard pressed just to find general information unless you really go deep diving. So he has a book called The Heart of Ice, Tracking the Wendigo. And of course, he's done a documentary, as you can see the trailer, with Small Town Monsters called Tracking the Wendigo. So we're going to hear all about it without further ado. Jason Hewlett, how are you?
Great, Michelle. How are you?
You know, fighting technology, Jason, but that's okay.
It's a constant battle, isn't it?
It is. It's great when it works. It's just like a big what the heck when it doesn't. So
yeah,
here we are. I know. Anyway, welcome to Beyond the Outer Realm. So you're on our newer show, and it's a lot of fun. People really, we get a lot of people from the other side of the world who are like, yay!
Well, it's a neat time.
Yeah.
Like for me, it's 11 o'clock, which I mean, it's so rare to be able to do anything at 11 o'clock in the morning when I'm at my sharpest. You know what I mean? And the memory's firing and everything's working properly. And yeah,
I can't even speak at 11 a.m.
Usually I'm on a cup of coffee right about now, but
right. Well, thank you for taking the time to join us and talk about this incredible, I think an incredible cryptid from especially a Canadian standpoint, because it's just really part of our Indigenous folklore, and people don't realize. Like, I think I had one encounter with this, and it was just a vocalization, and I'm interested to hear what you have to say about vocalization. But why don't we just sort of back up before we get into that? And I know you do a lot of cryptid stuff, and I love the stuff that you do. I watch all of it. But when you decided to write Heart of Ice and go after the Wendigo, nobody wants to do that, Jason. Nobody really wants to go after Wendigo.
Well, I didn't know that it was a dumb idea when I decided I was going to do it.
It seemed like a good idea at the time. Yeah. Right. Right. Okay. So what prompted you to just sort of throw caution to the wind and say, I'm going to go look for the Wendigo?
It was interesting because it was after Eli Watson and I made Cursed Waters and I'd finished writing the Legend of Ogopogo book. I had like a lull in my schedule. And so I was just looking for stuff to research. So, I was researching the Cadborosaurus, which of course is a sea monster off the coast of British Columbia. Yeah. And I was researching the Wendigo because it was something I was always interested in, because I remember reading the Incredible Hulk comic as a kid. And the Hulk fought the Wendigo. And that was also when Wolverine made his first appearance. So I thought it was a comic book character when I was a boy. And I'd draw pictures of it. And I just thought it was a neat comic book villain.
Yeah.
And then as I got older, I realized it wasn't. And there was like a real serious story behind this.
Yeah.
So it was the two. It was like I was kind of going back and forth between the two, and I was gathering information on both. And Eli and I were having kind of a post-production meeting about Cursed Waters because it was kind of done and it was getting ready to come out. We were going to go to Monster Fest for the big premiere of it.
Yeah.
And in the middle of the conversation, he's like, so what book are you writing next? And I was like, The Wendigo. Like, it just popped out. Like, I didn't even think about it. I was just like, bang. And suddenly, and Eli at that point was like, dude, you got to talk to Heather, like Heather Moser, who's one of the producers and researchers at Small Town Monsters.
Yeah.
Because he's like, we're going to be making like a Wendigo movie next year. And it was like, that just how it worked out with like Ogopogo. So that's kind of where it went from there.
Yeah.
And then there's a whole long road to the film getting made, et cetera, as there always is with these sort of things. But that was really when I deep dived into the research. And that was like April 2024 when I really started hitting the research hard at that point.
Well, it's not a lot of people doing this. You know,
I found that out really quick too.
Yeah. It's you hear a lot about the skinwalker. So I'll ask you, I mean, in comparison between the two, do you think they're fairly similar? Because I know there have been sightings up here in the Great White North, as they say, in Canada with skinwalkers as well. Linda Queener actually has an interesting story about that. But apples and oranges, or pretty much?
Yeah, apples and oranges. Like the Skinwalker is more of a Navajo
Hmm.
story, and the
Yeah.
Wendigo's like an Algonquin Cree story.
Okay.
And there are differences. Like a Skinwalker is someone almost like a witch warlock who can turn themselves into something else. The
Mm.
Wendigo is more complicated than that. Like it started off as being like a state of being. Like if you were taking more than you should have from the tribe, or back being greedy, or being like, antisocial, you could go Wendigo. Like you'd kind of become possessed by this spirit, right? That would
Mhm.
then take you over, and then you'd see, your loved ones as food, etc.
Yeah.
And then over time, it sort of morphed into a cryptid, and it wasn't even portrayed as a flesh and blood creature until Algernon Blackwood's book, The Wendigo. Before that, it
Yeah.
was like you were possessed by this thing.
Yeah.
So that's two very different things. But I think because in modern pop culture, and there was no antlers either traditionally, like that's a
That's
more
true.
recent, since the 1940s, I think,
Yeah,
pop
this is
culture
true.
thing. So, but I think people now see that and they think Skinwalker when to go, and they just get everything kind of mixed up. Like that happens a lot online with all of these kind of monsters,
Yeah.
really. Yeah.
Yeah. I just found the similarity, and I know when, because I've watched the film. Um,
Oh, awesome.
yeah, yeah, for sure. I watch them all. Yeah, I really enjoy them. But they don't. The indigenous people, the indigenous community doesn't really like to talk about Wendigo, much like they don't like to talk, like stateside. They don't like to talk about the Skinwalker. It's the same idea. Did you run
Very
into
much so.
problems, like for the most part there?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Like it was something people just did not want to talk about. And even when I found people to talk about it,
Yeah.
they would they'd sort of not skirt around it, but they're really careful on what they talked about. Because even to mention it, it can bring the spirit of the Wendigo to you or cause ill will, sort of thing. That way. I mean, I was lucky that Morgan Knudsen is someone I know, and she lives in Edmonton. She's a researcher,
Mhm.
investigator. And she knew all the stories, and she sort of knew the locations where a lot of these early, like the Swift Runner story happened. And she knew Alicia Perot Werner, who's of the Cree Nation, and she had background in it, and they'd had an experience, which when you read the book and watch the movie, we get really
Yeah.
into that and investigate it.
Yeah.
And so I was really lucky. That's the only way I could get kind of a lot of that background information that I was looking for. In the book, I interviewed Amanda Quill, who's an investigator out of Vancouver, and only that I knew her was I able to kind of get in touch with her, and she is Cree as well. Like it was really hard to find people
Mhm.
from
Yeah.
indigenous tribes to talk about it.
Yeah, the superstition, with that, and I think too, just, through oral traditions, it's just like, no, it attracts attention,
Yes.
and it's not the attention that you really want to track.
No, I think like out of all, and I know there's people that are hesitant to talk about Bigfoot or Sasquatch for the same reason,
Yeah.
depending on which tribe as well, right? So
Mhm.
I just think that's because they take these very seriously, these
Mhm.
stories. It's an important part of their culture and mythology. In a lot
Mhm.
of cases, they very much believe that this is still a very real thing. And
Mhm.
also, we as Westerners have a tendency to try to take them and just make scary monster stories out of them,
It's you're not
right?
wrong. Yeah.
There's disrespect there.
Yeah.
I was very aware of trying to write the book, and much like I was with Ogopogo, with Cursed Waters
Mhm.
and Legend of Ogopogo. So I
It
get
wa
where they're coming from.
Yeah, it has a comment. Hillbilly Herb, God, I love the handle. He said, "I've been terrified of lake monsters ever since I saw In Search Of episode about Ogopogo when I was in grade 1." So everything
I've
that
seen that
came
episode too.
afterwards, yeah. Now you get it all. It's just like real time with the technology and everything else,
Oh yeah.
reenactments, and it's wonderful. Um, I know that excuse me, all I could really find, because I researched this a few years ago for another show, just on basically on Canadian cryptids and folklore. And I was intrigued to find out that it actually went back, the first or earliest documented account went back to 1636 in the province of Quebec
Oh wow.
by a Jesuit priest named Paul Lejeune, who wrote a letter to Rome complaining of a native woman from a nearby village. I'm just trying to read this out so I have it accurate, who was warning people about the Achen, which is another word for Wendigo. It would be attacking a neighboring village. And the priest wasn't scared, but he just felt she was trying to undermine his teachings. And so basically, it goes back, like the acknowledgement goes back that far.
Yes. Even further, I'm sure. The origins are like not really even known. I mean, they know
Yeah.
how it happens and how it starts, but the first actual account of a Wendigo, people aren't sure.
Yeah, just the fact that a Jesuit priest would write Rome about it. She's undermining my teachings. It's just it's crazy. But yeah, I'm sure in oral, history, it goes way back. So what are the stories that you heard out, your neck of the woods, which they seem to be very prominent out that way?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Swift Runner is the big story.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the first time that it crossed over into Canadian criminal law, because he was like a trapper and a guide for the Northwest
Mhm.
Mounted Police, and he showed up in St. Albert, and Father Lacombe basically answered the door of this guy, claiming that his family was dead
Mhm.
and that they'd all starved out in the woods. But his story never added up because he was a very big, strapping guy and didn't look like he'd starved much. And there's plenty of game that winter.
Yeah.
But he would start at night screaming in his room, saying that the Wendigo was trying to get into his room and take him over. And
Mm.
through an investigation using the police, they determined that he had murdered and eaten his family in the Tuatna Valley. And they got Swift Runner to take them to the spot where the camp was. And they sure enough found bones and other remains showing, horrible, horrible crime.
Mm.
And so he was taken to Fort Saskatchewan, tried, and was the first person legally hung in Western Canada. And he, even while in Fort Saskatchewan, the guards would be unnerved by his screaming as he's in this tiny cell saying the spirit of the Wendigo is trying to get in and take him over.
Wow.
Um, yeah. And so I remember even when he was being hung, it was a cold, cold morning and it was just taking forever to get everything going. And he was like, come on, hurry up. Like, let's just get this over with. Like he was tired of living because of what had happened.
Wow.
The fear of this creature, right? And so that was kind of the first. That's a big story in Swift
Mm.
Runner, in Wendigo lore, the Swift Runner story.
Mhm.
Jack Fiddler was another one, although I believe he was more in Western Canada. And he was someone kind of like you mentioned earlier about the woman saying that there's a Wendigos coming in, could attack the village. Like Jack Fiddler was the guy people called on when they thought a Wendigo was working its way into the tribe, and he would kill the person basically who was either possessed by this creature or who had already been turned.
Mhm.
And him and his brother, of course, once the Northwest Mounted Police found out about it, they were arrested and tried. And he died before he could be spend
Mm.
life in the remainder of his life in prison because at this point he was a very old man. Um,
Wow.
those were kind of two big stories. There's Marie Coutray, like they're all very similar. Like she was a woman who started to behave rather strangely and started to believe that her family and other tribes members were looking at food. So her husband and son basically tried in vain to prevent her from being turned, and in the end had to kill her. And they buried her somewhere up near Slave Lake. And it's just story after story after story, very similar to this
Mhm.
about the Wendigo. And just it's amazing just how prominent it was. It still is in
Mhm.
Alberta. Like it's people
Mhm.
that take it very seriously, very, very, very seriously, even to this day.
So what kind of precautions would I mean, when you say would they, they would bury, let's say, someone who's been victimized or potentially in the thralls of becoming Wendigo, what kind of precaution? Like, is this something, because if when you talk spirit, yet, like cryptid yet spirit form,
Mhm.
is there any sort of ceremony that takes place with that, or they just throw them in the hole, just bury them up? I don't mean to sound insensitive, but it
No, no,
just
no.
sounds kind of frightening. You'd want to do it pretty quick.
You would, and that's the thing. Like when a person is sort of taken over, they become very strong, like very, very strong. So even
Mhm.
if when they tie people down, they can break out the bonds, etc. So what you want to do is you want to melt the heart because the heart is believed to turn to ice. So like you almost
Mhm.
force hot liquid down
Mhm.
their throat in hope of melting. But
Oh,
that's going to do incredible damage to a
yeah,
person anyway.
yeah.
Basically, what if you're taken over, you're pretty much screwed. That's the sort of you know what I mean? That's the thing. Like you're
So
pretty
there it
much
goes.
yeah.
To the point.
Like,
Yeah,
if you can survive hot
yeah.
liquid being poured down your throat to melt it, I guess you're going to be okay. But I mean, otherwise that happens. You're basically dismembered,
Mm,
burned, burned and buried. The ashes sort of scattered on different places or buried on consecrated ground. Like it's in a
mm,
way that it kind of becomes that classic kind of
mhm,
monster story to deal with it. But otherwise, like if you turn into this Wendigo,
mhm.
some beliefs say you're just doomed to wander the woods in a way because you're incredibly hungry, like consuming your own body, and then you basically just kind of like burn out. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
fall apart.
literally.
Like this could go on for hundreds of years potentially.
Yeah. Yeah, that's frightening. You have to feel for people. It sort of puts you back to the witch trials a little bit, like how many
Mhm.
people may have been, dealt with in fear of, because I mean, superstition, it does crazy things to people. But I guess all you have to do is have one experience and that's
Yeah.
it. You don't take the chance. I have a question for you. Hello, Polly. In your opinion, is it possible that we all have the Wendigo and other paranormal entity genes, but they are asleep, but awakened according to your reincarnation or timeline? That's deep.
It is deep. That
Mm.
I think
That's
like,
deep,
I don't
Polly.
know if they have like genes or anything, but like the Wendigo is like a cautionary tale. So
Mm,
if you behave, if you're a good person and
mm,
you're compassionate and you only
mhm,
consume basically what you need, you
mhm,
don't treat people poorly, you're generous to others and everything, you can basically avoid becoming possessed by this Wendigo. It's when, and I think it's even more relevant today because so many people are like can't see past the end of their own noses. It's all about
mm,
greed and consumerism and taking all
mm,
you can and all
mhm,
that. Where the Wendigo potentially could take over more people today because of just the way we act as selfish,
mhm,
individualized people.
mhm.
And
Well,
that's
throw
sort of
away
the Wendigo stories
society.
like don't do that. Like
Mm,
think of yourself as part of a community.
mhm,
Be giving to others. Don't like take too much firewood. You only enough for yourself. Same with food. We
mm.
saw that during the pandemic where people are like taking all the toilet paper and loading up the entire
I
meat
know.
department for themselves. They are therefore opening themselves up to potentially being taken over by a Wendigo.
Right, right.
That's the gist of it right there. So if you don't want this to happen to you, be the opposite of that.
Mhm. It sounds a little bit, like this mindset thing where you're inviting potentially any sort of negative spirit or entity into your space just from the vibe you're putting off, which I guess brings me to the next question, getting into the whole, do you feel like there could be like a quantum factor to this, much like, what's been reported with Dogman and Wendigo with respects to frequency and maybe infrasound, you know? If this thing could do infrasound, for example, that would incapacitate a potential victim pretty quick.
Oh, for sure. I mean, and that's something that is very much being tied into Sasquatch
Yeah,
stories nowadays. You're
yeah,
hearing a lot more about that. And I think it's maybe because we're starting to understand that more, like from a science perspective.
yeah,
Um, I know when Morgan and Alicia and I we went to Mameo Beach because
mhm,
their story is really interesting. Like they're literally in their story talking about a portal opening and something coming out that resembles a Wendigo.
mhm,
Like it could be. I mean, we've kind of talked about this before. Like I think a lot of all this paranormal stuff is interrelated somehow as
mhm,
part of a phenomenon on our planet. And I don't think you can discount it as being tying into like multiverse or different planes of reality. I mean, that's always gets kind of pretty woo woo, and I don't always like explaining unknowns with other unknowns. But the Wendigo is one
mhm,
of those things that it's not a strictly flesh and blood, and it's not strictly spiritual, and nor is it strictly psychological. It's a little bit of everything. So
mhm.
I think you could then get into the whole different frequencies,
Yeah,
right? Like in Dying Light, I wrote about people having near death experiences, but you could meditate and almost go to those different planes where people go when they have these near death experiences, right? So
yeah,
I there's something to that.
Mhm.
Um, I just I don't fully grasp it yet to kind of
Yeah, yeah,
explain it,
yeah, I hear you, yeah.
But I think you can tie it into a lot of this phenomena. It's kind of what I'm getting at. That's kind of where my research is taking me.
Yeah, I do agree that everything seems to be connected in one form or another. The infrasound thing is interesting because, some people they really report being harmed somehow or damaged or coming out with PTSD. Like it just seems to have quite an impact. So it's a curiosity because, the Wendigo is something that is very real to many. And again, the whole spirit aspect of it makes it sort of gives it that invincible feel as
Mhm.
well.
Oh, big
Um,
time, big time. And there's so many different like outside of like the actual historical stories, there's so many
mm,
different things being attributed to it nowadays. Like in a sense, especially since it showed up in that supernatural episode
Oh,
like
yeah,
20 years
no, yeah,
ago.
that's right. That's right.
Like stuff kind of starts being
Yes.
attributed to there, and now it's building like modern myth on top of it. But
Mhm.
yeah, no, there's so many different parts of it. I mean, like I was saying with Sasquatch, like I had an experience. I don't know if we talked about this on the show at all ever before, like because I spent a lot of time. Our family had a cabin on a nearby lake.
Mhm.
I spent a lot of my youth out there, and I'd even be out there as an adult, and like twice 20 years apart, I had the same sort of thing happen where I was out there. I'd, been rebuilding the deck one day. I was tired, so I was going to stay another night. I didn't want to drive back. And I was settled and everything was fine. And then like within like 5 seconds, I was completely freaked out. Like all the hair went up on the back of my neck. And it was an overpowering sense of, I got to get out of here. Like I have to get out of here. Like right now, I can't stay any longer. And so I just I packed everything up into the car. I went and I shut the pump off, and it was like the most frightening 5 minutes because you had to go outside and underneath the cabin, and it was dark. Got
Mhm.
in the car. It was like an hour drive back home. It took almost the hour drive back home to calm down,
Wow.
just out of nowhere. And it was like I don't scare easily, but that was
Yeah.
terrifying. 20 years later, the cabin had been rebuilt, but in the same spot. And it was the same thing. I was out for like my annual holiday out by myself, and I was going to stay one more night, and everything was fine. And then the exact same thing happened. And it had happened before. I'm like, yep. And I just packed everything up, put it in the
That's
car.
I'm
Didn't have
out.
to turn the pump off this time. Got in the truck, just drove home. It took almost the
Wow.
hour drive home to calm down. So that I think is infrasound.
Yeah.
What caused that, I don't know. But
Mhm.
given the stories of Sasquatch and other cryptids,
Mhm.
it got maybe something like that wandered through. It's definitely this is Sasquatch territory. The
Mhm.
Shuswap people believe in Sasquatch. Like I mean, it's
Mhm.
just so infrasound is a real thing because
Yeah.
I've
Oh,
experienced it.
yeah. See, it is that sense of that anxious feeling too. It's how it makes people feel. Makes you wonder how many people go walking in the forest, get hit with it, and never have any idea that
Yeah, they just get
that
called being creeped out. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, yeah, which is easy enough to happen, some forests anyway. Some are quite. I grew up, wonderful Northern Ontario in around a forest, never had to worry about it. But our family has a property out in Bancroft near like Eastern Ontario, right? And they've had Sasquatch around there. We had a
mhm.
caretaker out there. He goes, "Oh, it's 5 in the morning. It's pitch black. I got like tree knocking, and he's Indigenous." And
Oh,
he's like, he was
wow.
out there with the tobacco the next day. I'm like, what? And then you start seeing these videos starting to surface. I'm just like, well, there's 100 acres that backs onto Crown land, and then Algonquin Park. So it stands to reason, that they're definitely out there. So everybody's like, okay, we're just going to have a weekend out there. I'm like, how about like,
Go
yeah,
for it.
yeah,
Have fun.
exactly. Yeah. Well, I have no objection. The Sasquatch, I mean, is the least of the concerns compared to some of the things that are out there. Which brings me to this. How do beings like Sasquatch, do you think, would fare up against a Wendigo if you're dealing with this type of being that can just sort of has this insatiable hunger for flesh? Is it limited to just human beings, or does it move outside of that?
See, and I never came across any such stories in all my
Details.
research, right? I mean, if they did encounter it, would we even know? Like, you know what I mean? Like, we'd have
Yes,
to sort
I
of
know
see
it's
it,
true.
right? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
so I don't know. Like, all the stories just talk about human flesh,
yes. It would
right? And
just make
consuming
for
other people.
one heck of a crossover between beings if, one can turn into Wendigo. I had to ask because,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they're in this territory, like you say, Sasquatch territory, pretty full on. So it's sort of a curiosity. There's some parts out
What
there.
would happen? I'm surprised someone hasn't made a horror movie about that yet. Because
Wait,
that'd be
wait for it, and you're welcome.
yeah, I know, right? We need residuals on that one.
Exactly. You're all welcome for that one. So,
But it makes you wonder, like, if it is real. I mean, it is. Like, what by the end of it, I couldn't come to a conclusion of whether or not I believed in Wendigo or not. I
mm,
believe that there are people who believe in it, and I believe it's an important part of
mm,
the Algonquin Cree
yeah.
lore. And there's certainly enough people who believe in it that almost could, I think, create a tulpa effect,
Yes. Yes.
right? That
Yes.
something like that could be real. But there are
Mm,
stories, like there's still stories where it's in the film and the book that occur to this day. People having these sightings of these things, and I can't discount what people see.
mm,
I think you can misidentify something because that's
Sure.
easy enough, very easy to do.
Mhm.
But people are seeing something. So there's something to the phenomena. So,
Mhm.
is there, I just haven't run across an
Mhm.
8 to 16 foot tall skeletal thing in the wood. I'm glad I haven't come across it, even from not for lack of trying.
Well,
But
I was
it's
watching the film going, "Okay, we're going in." I'm like,
yeah.
"What? Don't do it." I'm behind the screen going, "Don't do it." You know? I mean, I'm sitting there on edge going, "Gosh sakes, if you actually come across this, then what do you do?" There goes the camera, you know?
Basically.
Yeah. Um, Hillbilly Herb, I wonder how many there could be or that could be active at one time. But so maybe to possess a body. From what I'm
Oh,
guessing is how many Wendigo could possess one person or a physical
I
body.
think it's like it's one on one from everything I've heard. It's you know what I mean? Like it would take over like the one person, and that was kind of it.
Right. Yes, but could another Wendigo also at the same time? I
Take the
think
same person over?
yeah.
I've never heard of that.
Okay, just
But you know what I mean? I mean, I guess anything's
yeah,
possible. Like
yeah.
hear stories of people being possessed by multiple things at once.
Mm,
But the Wendigo seemed very much,
mhm.
one to one. But would we know at the same time?
If a
Like,
tree falls in the forest,
right?
it goes back to that
Basically.
same yeah, that same idea, right? I mean, it's pretty elusive. Well, the experience that I had, was in Muskoka, the Muskokas.
Okay.
And, I was coming back from a location. It was, like, about 3 o'clock in the morning, and one of, the people who were with me was an indigenous, medium, very gifted, and he cool and calm as a cucumber. So, we're ready to head out, and out of the woods and I've never heard anything like this growing up north. I'm anxious to hear if you've had any of these experiences out your neck of the woods. The only way I could describe it is like a Xena war cry,
Okay.
like off and it was just a crazy ongoing thing. And this medium, the indigenous guy sits there and he goes, and he had just an unusual voice, and he just said, "That's a Wendigo." Just and I'm like, "Hey, wait, what? What did you just say?" And he just sat there going, "Yeah, it's coming this way." I'm going, "Great, in the car, get in the car." You know, and that was it, getting out of because this was in the backwoods of Muskoka.
Yeah.
So it was gonna take some doing getting out of there, and he's just in the back saying, "Yeah, it's not really that far. I can actually see the highway and the car," and I'm just going, "You need to stop talking now." I am trying to make a getaway. So, but yeah, have you ever heard, like, anything that sounded like that? Or
We heard. I didn't hear it, but when we were just shooting, kind of the sort of final sequence in the movie, the documentary, which kind of became the wraparound story.
Mhm.
Ollie heard a scream. Like I was pulling the vehicle in, and he heard it as soon as he basically got out of the vehicle. He heard what he claimed was a scream. And Ollie has spent his entire life in the bush.
Mhm.
Like him and his wife do like outdoor adventuring gear kind of stuff. Like he's
Bless their
with
hearts.
Catholic. Pardon me?
Bless their hearts.
Yeah. So I
Yeah,
mean, he knows what things sound
yeah,
like,
yeah.
and he it was something that he couldn't attribute to anything. And it was in a spot when I was up there earlier, well, the previous year, doing an investigation that I heard a whistle because
Mm,
whistles are something that Wendigos will do to lure you out. So that's one of the
good
things.
to
So
know.
screaming, I didn't hear the scream that Ollie heard, but that would also fit with kind of what you're describing.
Yeah.
Um,
I guess,
but
like I said, the Xena war cry to me is just an ongoing high-pitched scream that just went on and on.
yeah,
I mean, without even a breath, it just kinda did this thing. I'm like, I've never heard anything like that, but I guess what I was gonna ask about vocalization, like what the indigenous community have to say about, what maybe have they heard? Did it fare up with anything?
mimicking of someone's voice, like Sean mentioned it, like it's like you calling you out or someone trying to lure you out into the woods. I
Mhm,
heard Morgan told me this. It was after we made the documentary. It was like
mm,
long, like
mm,
earlier this fall that she heard a story where these people were out sort of hiking, And this one woman heard, like, it was a voice calling for help from a tree stand, but it started off sounding mechanical. And the more it asked for help, the more human it sounded.
Mm-hmm.
But when the person's like, well, where are you? Come on out of the bush. It was like, no, you need to come here. Like, it was something asking for help, but it would not come forward. You had to come to it. But it was the fact it started off sounding like a machine, adjusting its voice to sounding like a person. That to me is terrifying. Like,
That's
to encounter that.
that's what Billy says. Yeah,
Yeah.
mimicking is terrifying. He's right on board with you there.
Right. And so
I
that's
mean,
stuff attributed to Wendigo
right.
encounters.
Which could be, yeah. I mean, I guess if you're out in the woods, that would be a dead giveaway. I mean, spirits can do that.
Mhm.
So that's what I'm saying. How do you differentiate? You know, to me, anything mimics you. Just get out of Dodge.
That's my theory too. Yeah, you just
Yeah.
don't stick around, right?
Don't
Like,
wait to
you find
find
out
out.
what it
There's
is.
no
Like, no,
need.
I must know if it's a Wendigo or a Sasquatch, right? You know, it's like, no,
That's it.
out.
Exactly. Exactly. No need. No need.
I'm good.
Yeah, you know what happened, just book it. Yeah. She goes, "How do you know if it's a Wendigo and not something else? There's smells or colors or patterns that you can look to. I guess like a cross-referencing."
Yeah, I think that's what you'd want to do, right? But they have their distinct look
Mhm.
to them. They're very tall.
Mhm.
Apparently, like, there's like a sound sometimes that will kind of accompany them,
Mhm.
like a wind chimey kind of sound that's been attributed more recently to Wendigo encounters, right? Like,
Mhm. Mhm.
um, and the voice, some people say, like, too, if you actually hear the voice, it is paralyzing. Like, it stops you in your tracks, and there's nothing you can really do about it.
Mhm. Yeah, I wonder if it's got a little bit of that infrasound in there a
That's
little
what I
bit.
think of when I hear that, right?
That's like something that would paralyze you, would be
Yeah,
infrasound.
it would totally. It totally would. But
Yeah.
we're also dealing with something that's almost like a bit completely supernatural being too, right? Like, it's
Mhm.
so in that sense, like you say, spirits can kind of do a lot of things just by their nature.
Mhm. It's a very it's an unusual type of cryptid or
Yeah.
spirit being. It's sort of that cross. You don't really know which way to go with it. Y you know, if
But
that
I
makes any
still
sense.
don't, right? Like, I'm hesitant to call it a cryptid
Mhm,
because, like, because cryptids are supposed to be something that has not been accounted
mhm,
for zoologically. That's literally it. So, like, Sasquatch, sure.
mhm,
Nessie, Ogopogo,
mhm,
you betcha.
mhm.
But this fits almost more like into the Mothman
Yes.
thing,
Yeah.
Dogman, which has more of a supernatural side to it as well, right? Like, it's off on the fringe. And I think that's what's so fascinating about it, but what's also so terrifying about it is it's hard to pin into one
Mhm.
category.
No, absolutely. Evil trickster fae. Yeah,
Well,
that
that
is
fits into that too, right? Like, there's
yeah.
trickster stories that are very similar to Wendigo stories in terms of luring you out into the woods so they can take you off somewhere else,
Mhm.
same with the Fae or little
Yeah.
people, however you want to describe them.
Yeah, no, yeah, exactly, exactly. It's funny because yeah, I never would have factored in the Fae never came to mind, but it's exactly like something that they would do. Because I mean, with the disappearances, the Algonquin reported like just at the turn of the century that they claimed that they had lost a large number of their people or that went missing, to which they attributed to disappearances to the Wendigo.
Mhm.
Do they still maintain that? Like,
As far as I know, yeah. As far as I know, it's still something like I say, they take it very, very, very seriously to the point, like we said earlier, they don't want to talk about it. Like,
yeah.
they'd rather not discuss it with anyone.
Well, you just kinda like to think that it's something from the Wayback Machine. You don't really wanna think about the
Yeah,
fact
that
that
you could
it's now.
over time discount it and say, no, it's probably all
Yeah.
this other stuff. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? But it just
yeah.
they hold on to this. Like, it's in Alberta, like, I was
Mhm,
really surprised
mhm,
actually, like, I mean, I'm a believer in a lot of things, but I mean, I'm also gonna preach all of it from very skeptical perspective,
mhm,
but it's just like these people believe it. And I mean that because I was obviously not from around there and when going to these small Albertan towns, like, I stood out like a sore thumb and they're very wary of outsiders. You know what I mean? Like, it was really to me,
mhm,
it's fascinating. It is fascinating
mhm.
to see that firsthand in 2024.
Yeah. Fascinating is an interesting word.
Yeah, that's the best word for
We could
it.
go with fascinating. Sure. He has been at times that Wendigo has been compared, put in comparison to a dog man. Do you agree with that?
No, I think it's different. I mean,
Yeah.
Dogman has a very distinct look to it that is very different
Mhm.
from the Wendigo spirit.
Yeah.
The only sort of similarity is that people do attribute to Dogman some very frightening characteristics and things around
Yes.
them.
Mhm.
Um, so I think in that sense there's a similarity to it. Although I've also spoken to people up here in Canada who feel Dogman gets misrepresented and that there's some actual very docile ones. You know what I mean? Like, and not all encounters are really spooky.
They're
And
not all like Land Between the Lake where they just
oh yeah, which sounds
rip your
horrible.
arms
But I
off
mean,
like that. Yeah.
you hear very like benign Sasquatch encounters and very terrifying
Yes.
Sasquatch encounters. So
Yes.
I don't see why when you get into those areas that you couldn't have just different kinds. Do you know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
if it's as widespread, the Wendigo is very specific. Like there's
Mhm.
never been a good Wendigo encounter.
No.
You know what I
No.
mean? Like it's all bad, all across the board.
Right. Yeah, I tend to think with up here as well, we don't have a lot of dog men per se. I won't say they're not here because I've heard researchers say, yeah, they're there. But we have loup-garou. Like they're just these tall, lanky,
Yes.
uh, they're much different. And those are spotted all over the place. I had them around my old place up in Burlington even.
Yeah, I think they're more Eastern Canada than Western Canada too. Like we don't hear much. There's sort of in the Kootenays, we've heard some Dogman stories start creeping up a little
Out
bit,
there.
but that's really it. You know what I
There's one
mean? Like,
down here by the Welland Canal.
okay,
The Beast of Port Robinson.
interesting.
With interesting, yeah, an interesting, eyewitness account that was relayed, my way, and I was sort of like going, "Jesus, that's too close." It's way too close.
Right?
Yeah, yeah, but that's the typical, and then I've heard they've had some of it up in the North Bay area, the typical dog man, like the big ones with the big
Yeah.
hackles and the big manes, it's
And the
things you
red
don't really
red
want to.
eyes and like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, the thing that nightmares are made out of,
Yeah.
much like
Yeah,
the
which
Wendigo,
they are. But they're,
much like the
you know
Wendigo. So, I mean, Wendigo, where are the areas in Canada, asking for a friend, where are the
okay.
areas in Canada that they're the most, common? Because Alberta obviously is a big one.
Yeah, Alberta,
Um,
there's parts of British Columbia that, like I
yeah,
said, that encounters have taken place. And then
mhm,
it kind of follows that, like it goes into like Ontario and
mhm,
down into the Midwestern United States. But
great.
that's sort of but Alberta is literally like the epicenter. And then it almost kind of just comes out in like this sort of wave where they're going out towards like Ontario and down and then a little bit into British Columbia
Wow.
sort of thing, but not very commonly seen in British Columbia.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, do they tend to stay close to where, you may have different communities of the Algonquin people?
Yes. And that's primarily who are seeing
Right,
them.
which is
Right.
why, okay,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
right, okay.
And that's why the Wendigo psychosis is very much like a culturally based psychological condition. When they attempted to kind of look at it from a psychological perspective, it was, like you weren't having people in Florida with Wendigo psychosis. You know what I mean? Or
Right,
over in
right,
Europe, it was like literally Algonquin Cree people that they
right.
said were afflicted with Wendigo psychosis.
That's great because when you're thinking like the property I mentioned that my family had,
Yeah.
Algonquin Park,
Yes.
I had to ask because I do tend to, I have spent time there.
Yeah.
And now I'm starting to just double think that. So, oh, okay, good to know. There's only like, 20,000 acres of crazy there. So,
Yeah,
wonderful.
you never know. Like,
Oh, it had to be. Yeah, because when you put the pieces of the puzzle together, then things start to go off in your head, and you're just like, "Oh, okay, wait a minute."
oh, for sure, for
It's
sure.
not just Bigfoot. Okay, so how does one actually, aside from the fact, like I say, throw caution to the wind and head into investigations, what do you actually do? With Bigfoot, you have like tree knocking, you can leave food out. There's things you can do to entice interaction. And not that you would want to with Wendigo, but I
Mhm.
imagine if you're investigating it, for a film or whatever, you're trying to get something. So, what does a Wendigo researcher do to
I
entice communication?
I think we were like the only people that have done that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like when we went looking for, and it was all, and I think I say that in the film, like we're researchers and we're making a document. You have to do something. Like you just
Yeah.
can't tell this story and then walk away. So we were lucky, quote unquote, using air quotes there, that there had been a sighting that we could sort of look into.
Mm.
And we approached it with like spirit box, because if it is a spirit, you can use a spirit box in an attempt to communicate with it. We had used trigger objects that we'd put out into the woods in hopes that something would set it off. And we had something set it off. Like it was literally like a foot behind me. You know, it hadn't gone off all night and it was aimed the other direction. It was a change in temperature, like heat. It was related to heat, not like motion so much. So something had to literally come up to it to set it off. We had our laser grids out, so hoping something could break the laser. We had trail cams. We did an EVP session, and we did the Estes method.
Yeah, interesting.
Right, in an attempt to make contact if there was something. And what was interesting about that, because I was asking the questions, and Ollie had the spirit box on and couldn't see and was doing the thing. When I asked, like, is there any forest spirits out there? And he responded like, we are. And then it was like, are you? And then I think the word hungry came up as well. You know what I mean? Like it was, and that was enough, I guess.
Not a good combo.
Are you hungry? And it was like, we are.
Okay.
Right. And when I sort of had pause in my conversation, it said, keep talking. So that was interesting. But that's what we did. We kind of approached it from like looking at it from a spiritual and a cryptid. Like we kind of just married the two investigative methods together and hope.
But it's a good cross-reference point as well.
Yeah.
We are legion, we are starving. Yeah. Not a good position to be in. Jason.
No, it wasn't. But I mean, what do you like? It's one of those, like, you got to do something. Like you can't just do this in this documentary and then leave people hanging. Like you got to look.
You have absolutely. I fudge with you, but it's just because nobody, like I said, really wants to go and find one because the outcome does not usually work out in your favor.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, but the fact, I mean, what would be interesting is trying like infrared or night vision.
Yeah, and have since incorporated that into our investigations since then. We just didn't do it that time for whatever reason, because we do have those capabilities, right?
Yeah. I mean, you see something with a rock on its head coming your way.
It's
not on all fours.
We got it. We found it. Goodbye.
Yeah. Okay. We proved we're gone. Yeah. That would be an interesting visual at that point. Did anybody get followed home?
No, we were pretty lucky that way. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was pretty clear. Nothing happened that night to suggest that or after the fact that anything was around that was causing, that could have been considered negative from that regard. We take our precautions anyways, protection and, and prayers and all that kind of stuff. We don't mess around.
But when you're dealing with the spirit aspect of this being, that's a whole.
There's not much we could do to deter.
They hunt you, right? They hunt you.
You couldn't deter a walking real thing from doing that. Like, but from a spiritual perspective, we could protect ourselves that way, right? And that we, nothing. There was no sightings have been reported since.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Interesting stuff.
There's interesting stuff for sure. Gosh. Okay. It's really one of those things. There was a comment made, and I don't know if this does pertain. Let me just find it. Do you remember a few years back? I'm just trying to get in there. Here it is. There was a grim story a few years back of someone being beheaded while on a bus. If you remember this one, and many folks attributed that to the Wendigo, and that makes session now with the possession idea.
That was Vince Lee. I remember it was a Greyhound bus. I think it was 2008, Saskatchewan. And he claimed that he had been possessed by the devil, or the devil kind of made him do it. It was also learned that he had read, before boarding that bus, he had read an article in one of the Edmonton newspapers about the Wendigo. But it also must be pointed out that he was also schizophrenic.
Right.
He'd been diagnosed schizophrenic. So he could have believed that something had made him do it. But
the fact that the Edmonton Post had an article on the Wendigo,
did that set off his psychosis, and then he started, you know what I mean? Like, did that have tipped that off? We don't know. But it was certainly interesting. That's a certainly interesting thing to have happened. I don't want to say coincidence, because I don't believe in coincidences, but But
Insane.
that was fascinating. But it did fit. It has become part of Wendigo lore for that the act of killing and eating someone. And he was
Mhm.
cutting up parts and putting them in plastic bags for later. It was just like messed up stuff. Like,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
that is.
And I did include that in the book,
Mhm,
in the book Heart of Ice, that story. I didn't I cut it out of the documentary just because it's very different to
mhm,
portray something like that in a film. I mean, I
mhm.
could have, but there's like the first cut of the documentary is more than 3 hours long, and that was like unacceptable. So I had to
Right.
cut it down to like what could be a narrative that just told the Wendigo story and fill people in on something people don't generally, especially in the States,
Mhm,
where small town monsters out of where it's just not generally as well known.
mhm,
That became the focus more of the film than the book. The book I kind of covered as much as I could.
mhm. It's in comparison to some of the other books and films that you've done, information on the Wendigo, how sparse is it, or is it moderately similar?
Yeah, I found it moderately similar. I think the book that had the most information was Dying Light about near-death experiences. Like there was a ton of information out there on
Yes.
that. The
Mhm,
Wendigo, I did rely on my sources, that most of which are in the film as well. A few that I interviewed, like Ron Murphy, and Kenton DeYoung, that didn't make it into the film, but they were great resources. Morgan and Alicia were, and then Nathan Carlson wrote a paper on the Wendigo it was a really valuable source
mhm,
of information as well.
mhm,
Um, it was very very much like, I think, the most research heavy book
mhm.
out of all of them for me, just by
Yeah,
the nature of it.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's not one of those things that you find a lot of unless you're dealing with researchers who are very specialized
Mhm.
within that. I don't think you're going to even now, you're probably with your book and your film giving probably more information than what's been out there, and, at least especially in, like, in modern times. I don't know what it is why people don't really look at some of these other cryptids. It's not like it's a lesser known, it's pretty
No,
well known compared to many that are out there.
for
Mm,
sure. But you're right. Like there's a lot of the information I found. There was a lot of repetitive information. There's a lot of Swift Runner stories out there and variations on it and
it's just
papers on it and
recycled.
recycled. And same with like, Jack Fiddler and Napanen, all that kind of
Mm,
stuff. There's like one about Fort Kent, which is completely that if people attribute it as a true story, but it's not. It was a story that someone made up for a screenplay for a movie that was never made, but a show called
mhm.
Creepy Canada got a hold of it and said it was true. Now everybody believes it's true. Like there's a lot of that kind of stuff out there and a lot of
Yeah,
TikTok videos and like it just that you just
yeah.
can't trust.
No, it's true, but that's media.
Yeah, that's
It's not
media, especially in this day and age.
unlike the documentaries, which are always better,
Yeah.
Trust me, it's one of the reasons I just retired from it. I was like, "No more."
No, it's
I
really,
can't.
and when people send me stuff, it's like, "Do you think this is real?" It's like, "No, picture's been circulating for like decades." You know what I mean? It's just, or
Yeah.
it looks very AI to me. Like it's just,
So
it's,
let's talk about that then,
yeah.
Jason, because the world of technology can be amazing, but it can also work against you, and especially as a researcher when you are trying to find, um, you know, images, everything's AI, and I think when things went digital, it's sort of, CGI, all of that. When I look for research, I try to find really old photos, and even
Mhm.
then, once it's hit the web, you just don't know what's been done to it. So, do you find a struggle with that yourself?
Oh, for sure, for sure. And even as a someone who's a documentary filmmaker, like how much, like I had to use AI in Wendigo to because we didn't have the time or money for a Wendigo costume or stuff. So like it
Sure.
just like loading images had to be
It
created that
has
way.
its
And
advantage, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and just to fill in gaps, and I didn't really like doing that. And I have
Mhm.
something with other projects that are coming up. I'm using it less and less, if not at all.
Mhm.
But I was in a position with the film where just I had to kind of connect some dots, and
Mhm.
there was no money to build a costume or an animatronic Wendigo and put it in the
Sure.
woods to do stuff.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's a fine line you walk,
Mhm.
right? But I'm finding as someone who's doing research and likes to do serious research, yeah, it makes you question stuff that you come across where people think,
Mhm.
yeah, this is like irrefutable proof of photographic, or video evidence, and it's like it just doesn't look right. It just, you know what I mean? Like it's made it a lot harder. I understand why there's more and more of a backlash forming now. Like people are getting really tired of it. It was like for a while it was like awesome and the coolest thing, and now people are getting really turned off by it, and I can understand why. It's People are
Mm.
just using it too much, and it's muddying the waters. And yeah, it's becoming
I
problematic.
think when you need to ask AI if an AI picture is really AI,
There's a
it's
problem.
bad. It is a problem. Yeah, you just sort of see it everywhere now. Is this real? Is this real? It's
And
like
some of it's pretty convincing. Like, you have to sort of
yeah,
really stop and look at some of it, right?
yeah.
You can tell. You can always tell, but you have to really pause. Hello. Yeah, so I it's making it the job harder. The job's been getting harder and harder for a
Mhm.
long time, and it's just the AI is just making it worse.
It is, but I mean, it's understandable to use it in a film. Where are you gonna find one?
Go ahead.
They're not yeah, they're
No.
not abundant by any means, you know, but I mean, when you're trying to look through photographs, you know, or videos, it is making it really, really hard, and it just does so much damage to a field. These are difficult fields to try to be
Mhm.
taken seriously in, you know, and you can do everything right, but then when the
Yep.
technology starts working against you, or the naysayers find the technology to work against you, or I mean, it's at a point where they can take your film and pick it apart and turn it into so many different things. It's just a lot of hard work, and I have to say, like, for yourself, is it do you find it's worth it?
I do, yeah. Like, I found, like, making, tracking the Wendigo when it was and the writing the book, and when all was said and done, it was a very rewarding experience. And,
Yeah.
I'm really happy with how it turned out
Yeah, it's
and
great.
with how it's been received. I've got another project coming out, like, on Sunday, Sasquatch Legacy, that I'm even more happy for and excited about.
Yes.
And to be able to have, just because I learned a lot making Wendigo,
Yeah.
to go into this, but just like, for me, like, as someone who's a researcher and investigator, this is, to me, the only logical way to take what I've found and put it out there for people to digest. Do you know what I mean? To write a
Mm,
book or make a film about it. And whatever people do with it after that, that's up to them. Like, you know what I mean? I find it
mm,
very rewarding.
mhm,
And I'm really appreciative that I have the opportunity to do it
mhm.
right now, to do it this way, finally to make this work. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't think people understand that. That's, I
Mhm.
think, where some modern, say, who are fans of this kind of stuff and consumers of it don't get. Because I mean, like, as with anything, people can be hypercritical. Why
Mm,
don't you do this, or why didn't you try that, and blah. But people have no idea how hard it is to actually do real good research.
mhm.
And then in whatever form you try, like, be it a radio show or a YouTube show or a documentary, then to put it out there. Like, we're not just putting it out there as entertainers. Like, we're
Mm,
trying to find real information and
mhm.
new information, not just always retelling the same old stories, right? Which is hard
Eh,
to do.
it is, and I think first off, writing a book doesn't just happen overnight. That
No,
in that in itself is a feat, right? And you put your heart and soul into it, and that's with all of the research. Like this, it can take years, months
that was
for
like a year and
sure.
a half of my life, that book,
See,
right? Like, and
right?
as the documentary was a part of that too, it became like the last sort of 4 or 5 months of that process with some
Yeah,
film while I was doing research when I didn't even know I was making a movie. Like, I just
yeah.
took my camera to Edmonton with me just to film things. So just I had an idea of what it looked like. And when talking to people, just,
Mm,
that kind of
yes,
thing. Yeah.
yes. Um, so again, I know I'm hopscotching around a bit, but you'll say things and it'll just trigger. It's how my brain works. So sorry.
So that's all right. Mine does
Um,
the same
so, but just I think it's just a creative process, you know. But do you feel like when you were looking for Wendigo, and I think I asked you this with Ogopogo as well. Have you tried like having a medium use telepathy, just trying to tap in to see if you know, if you can get any sort of communication back, even telepathically, because we know Bigfoot and we know Dogman. We know many of the cryptids are telepathic. It would just be curious to see if Wendigo is the same because he seems sort of like just so fixated and you
Mhm.
know.
It's not something I've done because I don't think I've found someone who claims to have those abilities yet that I could fully
Mhm.
trust. Does that make sense? That
Sure
I
does.
know well enough that they're not just
Hmm.
feeding me whatever they want.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, and that
Yeah,
to me, I've got to be
that's
really
a big
careful
one.
about that, because there are some people out there that they will tell you stuff, and you could just be like, you know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
their reputation isn't as such that I would take what they say at face value.
Hmm.
So if I'm going to use that, I want to make sure that the person I'm using is someone that I really know
Hmm.
is to be done the reading on me that's completely accurate. You know what I mean? Like
Yes. Yes.
it's tough. I'd have to really
And
weed through a bunch of people to do it.
not a lot of telepaths actually want to come forward either.
No, and I understand why, because of all the shyster artists out there that claim they are. They're just trying to
Yeah.
make a buck, right?
Yeah,
Like,
well, you get that, and you get, that you get all of these black projects as well that look for
yes,
people specifically like that. So they don't necessarily want to come out and say, "Hey, yeah, I'm one
yeah,
of
here
those."
I am, right?
Yeah, no, not me. I'm just saying on an average,
Yeah,
nobody's gonna flag them down. Um, so remote viewing, same idea.
yeah, it's the same thing. I'd have to find someone who I thought who could really do it. Like my buddy Sean actually can see inside people's living rooms. It's something he can just do, but I don't think he'd want to go on film and like go looking for a
I'm a
Wendigo.
lurker. I lurk
Right?
with
Just to be
permission.
honest, he says he can do this, but I believe him. But it's just like he said, that's the extent of it, and I don't know if I'd want to be on camera,
Yeah,
kind of thing.
yeah,
But
yeah.
that's
I lurk.
yeah, it's like when it's anything like that, you have to
Mhm.
fully 100% trust the person that's telling you this information. Like you really do.
I would think with remote viewing would be a little easier if they can remote view something while you're on site,
Yeah,
or send you to a certain area and then remote view you while you're on site and sort of guide you into the right area. That
yeah.
might
That
be
would
worth.
be if I could find someone that could do that. Like that, I think it would be an interesting experiment
Mhm.
for sure. For
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely, absolutely. I think it's just one of those things, that you're again, with Wendigo, to really wanna find it. I don't even have to be on the fence with that,
Yeah,
knowing what it is. I
yeah.
think I'd be just kind of afar going, I'm good. It's in that direction. I'm gonna go look in that
Yeah,
direction."
we're fine over here. We'll be in the pub.
Exactly.
Everything's cool.
Exactly. Yeah. See, that works, that works. There's just some things you just, you don't wanna throw caution to the wind with. So, let's jump into the new project, that you have something new coming out soon.
Yes,
Sunday.
on
Sunday.
Sunday, actually,
Yeah,
a documentary called Sasquatch Legacy. It's coming out from Small Town Monsters.
yeah.
Debuts on their YouTube channel at 11 a.m. Pacific Sunday, and it's sort
Mhm,
of a this is a launching off point for more that I'm going to be doing with Small Town Monsters.
mhm,
And it's interesting because it's like Seth Breedlove, who runs it, pitched the same day.
mm,
He's like, "How would you like to make the Wendigo movie? And also, could you do a Sasquatch special for us?" Kind of
yeah,
thing, right? So I kind of was working on both almost at the same time.
yeah,
And the Sasquatch one was interesting because I knew a gentleman named Kenton Moore who had kind of him and his buddy had a Sasquatch experience. So
mhm,
it became an opportunity to investigate that encounter, which was pretty recently too, which doesn't always happen.
mhm,
And then also I wanted to touch onto indigenous beliefs in regards to Sasquatch.
mhm,
And then I went and spent time at Harrison Hot Springs, which of
mhm,
course is where the term Sasquatch was formed. And I spoke with like veteran researchers like Thomas Steenberg and Jerry Matthews and
mhm,
Brad Trent, who has had a few encounters. And so it's called legacy because it is trying to tap in as much into the legacy of Sasquatch in British Columbia
mhm,
as I could within the hour and a half, also showing an investigation. So talking about sort of the
mhm.
historical stuff as well as something recent, and then bringing in the indigenous lore around it. Um, it was a fascinating project to work on.
I think it's great that you do concentrate so much on the indigenous lore of everything because realistically, the oral history, it's, it's a dying, um I don't even know really what to call it. Oral history is just I don't wanna say it's not a craft, it's just not it's a way of life, or it used to be
Mhm.
a way of life, and I just find that just because I've met so many, indigenous people just trying to coordinate information for shows, and it's just like, so, what's your oral history? And then dealing with the younger generations, it's, "No, we don't have any of that." "What? Dang
Yeah,
straight it's there somewhere."
it has to
You
be
know?
there.
It has to be there, yeah, and yet there are others who can just go back and pretty much quote the old campfire stories and dealing with their elders, like, I think there's just some communities that are still, much more intact and practicing all of this, and I think by putting it to film, it just immortalizes it in some way because it may not always be there.
Well, that's how I feel, and these stories are their stories
Yes.
once again, right? And so that's why I like as much as I can. I mean, I run into a lot of roadblocks trying to bring the indigenous perspective into it.
Yes.
Because again, a lot of them don't want to talk about it. And I found with Sasquatch, even I interviewed Coralie Miller, who was in Cursed Waters,
Mm-hmm.
about their Sasquatch was just they call strunatum, but even then, her culture isn't really allowed to talk about it for much the same reasons that they don't talk about
See?
Wendigo, which I thought was really fascinating because for
Yeah.
them it is not always this friendly forest spirit. It's
Yeah.
it can be pretty aggressive
Mm.
and mean. So I found another gentleman named Sheldon Kwatsky who spoke about it, and he could talk a bit more. And he'd had encounters, so he could take me to their encounter sites, and he would
Mhm.
share his stories with me. But even he says the same thing. A lot don't want to talk about it. So I don't know if that just means Sasquatch out here in British Columbia maybe isn't always so friendly as other Sasquatches. So which
You
is
can keep those ones out there.
right. Which
But
make for interesting stuff when we're out in the woods looking for it.
but you got British Columbia, in all fairness, pretty close to Alaska. And I mean, if you're looking out like Portlock,
Oh yeah, the Portlock
Alaska.
story is incredible,
Oh
right?
yeah, like 15. Yeah, Portlock Bigfoot. Yeah, very unfriendly. But as some researchers have said, it's because maybe, the people within that community were just decimating the land,
Yeah.
overfishing, overdoing everything. But I mean, I think there were heights reported like 15 feet tall. I'm like, what? I don't think
Well,
I want to be near
everything's
something that
bigger in
big.
Alaska though,
They
right? Like
are.
like the grizzly bears are bigger. Like everything's bigger in Alaska.
What? British Columbia is really not that far in the grand
No,
scheme
it's
of things,
not.
and I'm
It's
wondering
not.
if they're
No.
just kind of making their way. They're making their way down or up or whatever the case may be.
It could be. Like that's what's so fascinating about it. Because and our terrain is very similar, to
Mm.
Alaska's out here, right? Especially when you get to northern British Columbia.
Yes.
So it
Yeah.
was really interesting to put this, and I learned so much from Wendigo that I could like apply and correct making Sasquatch Legacy.
Hmm.
Uh, I think it's a very different feel film. Like when you see it, it's got a different vibe to it because it fits more in. It's more, I don't know. There's a little more heart to it, maybe because it's
Yeah.
not such a terrifying thing all the time. You know what I mean? Like, and there's a real history, especially with the people who've researched it.
Yeah.
There's a long history in British Columbia that I got
Yes.
to touch on and talk about, which I thought was great.
I also think, adding to that is there are more people who research Sasquatch and
Mhm.
also feel more comfortable in researching Sasquatch because it's just a more widespread or widely known
Yeah.
cryptid, right? It's just the one like sort of everybody talks about and feels comfortable. Whereas when you're looking at something like the Wendigo, it's like there's that healthy curiosity, but there's that. I have to say common sense. I know it doesn't always apply. So I say it with love, people. I do. There are people out there though who will literally go in like hook, line, and sinker, saying we're just going to be the first to do this. And then you just never hear from them again. It's
Well,
just,
and yeah, and that was
I don't
something we even make a
yeah.
comment in the film in tracking the Wendigo towards the end, like Ollie and I are talking, and Ollie's like, I wonder how if this was really such a good idea. I think I said it. I said honestly, I feel like kind of an idiot right now because it just you're in the middle of suddenly doing this thing and realizing this could go horribly wrong
Yeah.
really quick. And I mean, researching Sasquatch, things can go wrong too because you're in the woods and you're in the middle of nowhere. But
Mhm.
they're like again, not every Sasquatch encounter. Most end fine.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Or like they're so quick, you're not even aware of it.
And they give you
Very
warnings on
rarely.
an average, right? Do
Pardon me.
they give you warnings?
They give you warnings. You
Yeah.
get heads up. You get like there's just so many different things, and I don't think in most cases it's out there to do any harm to you, right? If you're
Mhm.
respectful. But the Wendigo, there's just like I said earlier, there's just nothing good about it.
Yeah. No, exactly. Um, Wayne says, using myself as an example, I knew Bigfoot for many decades, whereas with Wendigo or Dogman, I've only heard about these things in the last handful of years. So I see again, it lends to that idea that Bigfoot has been researched for, well, I mean, what, 100 years
Yeah, I think
outside
tops.
the
I mean,
indigenous community?
yeah, at most, I think what Albert Ostman was. His story kind of came around in what 1920, maybe. I'm trying to think.
Yeah, not far off.
The Jacko story was like the late 1800s that it was sort of making
Oh, see, there
newspapers.
you
But in
go.
terms of people researching, yeah, you're talking like the 50s, like real
Yes.
researchers, right? Like where you'd actually see people take it seriously. And then the Patterson Gilman film kind of
That's
blew it all up. That was
yeah.
like 1960 something. So yeah, you've got like 70 years of research history there. Whereas
Mhm.
Wendigo, sure, the story goes back thousands of years and people have been talking about it, but how much have people researched it? Very, very few. Like Chad Lewis wrote
Mhm.
a book on it.
Mhm.
Um, I think I wrote the book on a book on it. I don't think there's
That's
that
it.
many people who've looked into it, right? Other than people just making quick YouTube videos where they're just sort of throwing information at you.
Mhm. Well, and a lot of times, I mean, you're starting to see, which is why, I mentioned when you guys did the film, they're hacking up these videos and just for a compilation of things, and unfortunately, when you do that, you're only getting bits and pieces
Yeah.
of the full story.
Yeah.
There's a lead up to that. It's not like you just get dropped into the middle of the forest and say, go.
No, exactly. That's 100%. And I think that's one of the biggest stumbling blocks in our modern culture is people are just looking for their soundbite
Mhm.
or their quick
Yes.
hit video.
Mhm.
And these stories require a lot more time and patience
Mhm.
to learn the truth about them.
Mhm. Yeah, without a doubt, I mean, I have to commend you on this story because there's not a lot of information on there, and the fact that you were able to get this documentary pretty much filled with eyewitness accounts and historical lore, and the research end of it. Again, I'm the guy sitting there going, "What are you doing? What are you doing? Are you sure you want to go in there?" No, you know. So common sense prevails, but it was really well done, and of course the book always has that much more information,
Yes.
right? So there is
Yeah.
a link to your book also in the show description, so people can go and purchase the book, or they
Thank
can
you.
purchase direct from you. Yes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then the movie is available to watch on Small Town Monsters YouTube channel at the moment, right? And
Yeah.
I bet you really for something that sort of was lesser known, it's like more than 76,000 views or something so
Wow.
far, which I thought was really good.
Yeah, that's great. Two of those are mine.
It was perfect.
Just saying. Yeah. No, I really enjoyed it. I did. I really enjoyed it. And
Thank you.
sometimes you just, when you watch it a second time, I like to do that because you miss things, or maybe I'm just in disbelief. Like, was he really walking towards the edge of the woods after we heard something? No, Jason's a logical guy. No, you so you know. So do you feel that people watching this, that you might just get that one guy who's like, I'm gonna go up there and check it out?
Oh, I'm sure there's always that person,
I
and
have to ask, yeah.
there's nothing I can do
Yeah.
about it.
No, I
You know what
know.
I mean? Like, I mean, that's
Yeah.
something that's happened for as long as people have been making documentaries or TV shows, or like
Mhm.
someone's always going to like go, I want to do that and try it
Yeah.
out. If you
Mhm.
are doing that, um, just be
If you get
smart.
photos, send them to Jason Hewlett.
Yeah, send photos to
Yeah.
me,
Yeah.
jhewlett72@gmail.com. But just be careful, use common sense,
Yeah.
and realize too, like there's a lot of other things in the woods to worry about than a Wendigo. Like there's
Yeah.
bears and cougars, especially in these areas, right? And other things
Mm.
that can really do you harm.
Mhm.
Be smart. And Wendigos are seen in the winter. It's winter right now, but then dress accordingly. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
wear long
No.
johns, proper gear, take extra food, and bring a tent just in case or a sleeping bag. Like just take all the
Right.
precautions you can.
The common sense stuff. Yeah. I just
Yeah.
figure somebody was actually gonna go on the heels of one. This shows a bit of lack of common
Yeah,
sense.
I think
Again, I
so
say it
too.
with love, people, but this is just not one of those things that I think. But it happens. It happens. People watch these documentaries, and I can't see this being any different.
Yeah.
And again, it's one of those topics that, well, we don't hear about this much. We don't see this much. So can you imagine if I was a person that actually found it? So will
Gotta
anybody
be
find
careful.
you after that? Is
Gotta
what
be
I'd like
careful.
to know.
I think it finds us if it wants to. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like I think more than anything.
Yeah, which lends to, again, the fact that you may not see them, but they see you. That's
Yeah,
anything that's out there. They're well aware of you,
and
especially
that's a
if
big
there's
thing
some.
with Sasquatch too. Sasquatch, you're
Yeah.
not going to find Sasquatch. Like we aren't. If you go looking for it, it'll only show itself if it wants to be seen by you, or you completely stumble across each other by accident, which I think
Mhm.
is pretty rare for
Yes.
Sasquatch. I think it's very aware of what's going on in its terrain. We're in their territory.
Yes, and they're
Yeah.
well aware of you. I think even telepathically.
Oh, sure. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me, that that aspect comes into play, that they'd be so aware of everything that's going on around them, right? And then so
Mhm,
if you see one, it's because it didn't mind being letting itself be seen.
mhm. Which and I would think Wendigo is not gonna be any different, especially if it has the ability to, if you're dealing with, again, cryptid spirit, that's where I'm kind of on the fence with it as to which is it really? I mean, they're
Mhm.
seeing something physical, so something's manifesting itself or projecting an
Yeah,
image of
and that's
itself.
the thing, right? It's probably projecting because it is a spiritual
Yeah,
creature of some sort. Like,
and it
you
eats
know what I mean?
people, Jason.
Yeah, it eats people.
It eats
And
people.
that's I think this again, I've said this
Yeah,
throughout the interview, that's what I find so fascinating about it. It just doesn't it's not this one easily compartmentalized thing, which
yeah,
is why I came back to the tulpa idea. Maybe enough people believe in it that
yeah,
they've manifested something out there. That happened with, like, the Slender Man story.
it did.
It was a and Slender Man was just an internet creation. There's nothing real about it. Now people are saying they're seeing it out in the woods. So did we
Mhm.
enough people believe in it to manifest?
Yeah, I'm
You know?
totally on with the tulpa, effect on many, many different things. I mean, there are tulpas, like, they think Santa might be a tulpa because Santa is something created, like, in the '70s with the jolly fat man in the red suit. I think it was a Coca-Cola thing, and there are paranormal investigators who research just Santa, and where he just shows up and disappears in people's houses, and he's all scowly, not so jolly. So, yeah, it's a thing, and
That's
and,
I
uh,
did not know that.
I
I did
know.
not know that.
When I found all that, I could literally do a whole show on it. There was quite a bit of information out there because there are people who research just that, and that's total tulpa.
Yeah.
He's been spotted walking down the street with, like, elves. That's a created, and then they just disappear, and people have woken up in the middle of the night, just standing at their door, making sure they're in bed. Like, what is
That
that?
scared the crap out of me.
Right? As a kid, I'd be mortified, but it's a thing, right?
Yeah,
So
that's crazy.
I know. So again, like, I'm a big believer in the whole tulpa theory behind many of the things that are witnessed out there. Mindset is a real powerful thing.
It is, and I know that's a big part of parapsychology, like the parapsychology aspect of
Yeah.
this field where,
Yeah.
even if you because we're investigating a place that's supposed to be haunted, by the very nature of us even believing that it's haunted, we can almost cause our experience to happen
Yes.
when we're there because we're so
Psychokinesis,
anticipating it. Yeah.
right?
Yeah, exactly, right? And I think that's pretty so why could that not also be the case with all this other phenomena as well?
I agree. I agree 100%. It's just bring a friend of yours and have them going through menopause, throw 'em in a haunted location, watch the
Oof,
magic happen.
yeah, I bet.
Just saying, or like a teen, just the right teenage. It does happen, and it happens more times than not.
Yeah.
But we are powerful beings as well, so we can project. Look at the Philip experiment. Like,
Oh gosh, yeah,
it's
and
old.
poltergeist activity, a lot of it is just
Yeah,
attributed to an individual and their mental
yeah.
state, right? Like it's
Philip shows up and is a complete manifestation of the people who work with it. People have no idea.
yeah, it's crazy, but it's
Yeah,
true. That's the thing. Like it
yeah.
happens, and I think that's I think as researchers, we don't count that enough. We're always looking for some external reason. You know what I mean?
I tried putting that theory out on some of the Survivor shows I had to do, and that got shoved right under the rug.
I
So,
know I'm not surprised because that's not as scary anymore. Oh, what do you mean? It's our fault? Come on.
it's not ratings.
Yeah, I
Of all
know.
the
I
all
know.
the answers I gave, there's only one they went for. It's like, all right, that's cool. So, that's media, and I think that's what, where people follow. They just watch what they see, and that's what they believe. And I
Yeah.
think with the documentaries, it's a little bit different. You have more creative control. You can put out there exactly what it is that needs to be out there. And, I think with small town monsters are very much, I love how things are done. And, you're a part of that. And so I think people need to check it out. The Ogopogo story to me was just like amazing. The documentary you did on
Oh, Cursed
Ogopogo.
Waters, yeah,
Oh,
it's people still talk about it. And now it's actually reached wider distribution, which is great, like,
yeah.
especially down in the States, right? And I think that's more people are seeing it, which is fantastic.
Oh, it was excellent. So, okay, where can people find not just this book, but all your books?
So, Amazon is a great place to start.
Okay.
All of them are available via Amazon.
Yeah.
Legend of Ogopogo and Heart of Ice, you can also get from smalltownmonsters.com through the
Okay.
shop.
Yeah.
The first 3 books, which, like, I Want to Believe, One Man's Journey into the Paranormal, I Want to Believe in Investigator's Archive, and then Dying Light are all
Mhm.
from Beyond the Fray Publishing as
Yes.
well. So you can pick those up that way.
Okay. And we have a new documentary coming out Sunday. And what do you have in the works? Can you
Yeah,
say?
so that was Sasquatch Legacy out this Sunday, Small Town
Yes.
Monsters YouTube channel. And
Yes.
then it was just announced today, Alex Petikoff and I are going to Vancouver Island and collaborating on a documentary of his called Journey to Ape Island,
Ooh.
which will be really exciting. We're doing that in 2026.
Mhm.
And there will also, I'm also be doing 2 other projects in relation to that that'll get announced in the new year when they do their Kickstarter
Yeah.
campaign. So, and then I've got another thing that is a tie into Sasquatch Legacy that I can't really say too much about, but I'm working on that right into the new year as well. So
Wow.
I've got a lot happening at the
You
moment,
do
which
have
I'm
a lot
pretty busy.
happening. So
And then my
I think,
radio show. I do have my radio show
yeah,
every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Pacific, 7 Central, called Paranormal Theories on Sandcastle Radio. And Michelle, you have to come on as a guest so I can finally return the favor. It would be
I
awesome
will.
to have you on.
I would love to. I love hanging out with you.
Yeah,
Who knows
likewise.
where the conversation will go?
Yeah, I know, which is that's half the fun of it, right?
I know. I like those. I like those kind of conversations. So, okay. Well, I think that it's safe to say that we're going to be seeing a lot more of you, aside from the radio show, which we can see you once a week. We're going to be
Yeah.
seeing you on the screen as well.
Yes, yes, a lot more into the new year, which I'm very excited about and feel very, very blessed
Yeah.
and charmed to be in a position to do that.
Yeah. Well, thank you, because like I've said it before, I'll say it again. You're an amazing researcher.
Thank
You
you.
don't you don't fudge around. What you see is what you get. Take it or leave it, and I like how you approach it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
No.
I try really hard to keep it that way.
Yeah, well, yeah, you're doing well, and keep up the good work, because I think in the age of television and things like TikTok and all these platforms that just are just happy to have these little blips, they have their place.
Mhm.
Don't get me wrong, they have their place. And but I think there's people that are starting to lack the substance.
Yes. And I think people are getting hungry for substance.
Yeah.
They want a lot more out of their media, right?
Everything's too recycled.
Yeah.
So
And too
thank you.
safe. Most of it's pretty safe stuff. Like, if you're only getting a 30-second video or soundbite, you're
Mhm.
not getting anything that's
Mhm.
challenging you, anything that's going to wake you up, make you
Mm.
think. And I think
Yeah.
people are starting to starve that, which is why physical media is sort of starting to make a comeback now, like books and DVDs and records, like all of that's kind of becoming more of a thing again because people want that tangible,
Yeah.
deeper experience.
Yes. Well, they do, because again, it's just like having the recycled films. You go to the big screen, pay both eyes out of your head, and like, this is a replayed. It's been done 50,000 times. you
It
know,
is. Might as well go back and watch the original one from the 80s because it's better and you can watch it for cheaper.
Exactly, exactly. So that, again, that's just one of those things that I think that with yourself and with Small Town Monsters, they're starting to pave the way, and other independent
Mhm.
filmmakers. But I've been watching Small Town Monsters for quite a long time. Like I've followed them, and I have watched their stuff on Amazon, and then you started popping up. It's like, wow, this is just like double bonus. Okay, good. But it's done really well, and that takes a lot of perseverance and a lot of hard work and a lot of really good research. So
Yes.
I thank you for that, and I thank you for joining me today on Beyond the Outer Realm, and looking forward to our next segment, talking about your new show that's coming out on Sunday.
Thank
So,
you. I look forward to it as well.
yeah, so stay tuned, guys, and thank you all in the chat room for just for being awesome. You guys have your whole world going on in the chat room. I love you all for it. So thank you. And I have to say good afternoon, because for us it is. It's not quite evening. And we shall see you tomorrow night. guys, on the Outer Realm. And I guess I should let you know who's going to be with us. So tomorrow night we have Marilyn Hughes coming back to talk about her book, The Fragrance of the Mystical Rose, a revelation of an out-of-body travel celestial, a discussion about the rites of passage. So it'd be deep. Anyway, and then Maxim Furyk returns to talk about his book, Flying Saucers, Esoteric, the Altered State of Ufology. So we're going to go back in time and we're going to come right up to Age of Disclosure. And it's going to go, we don't know. Maxim just goes, man, and he's fun.
He's an interesting guy. I've actually
is.
spoken to Max. I had him on my show a few weeks ago. He's fascinating. It was all about the Smurl haunting because he wrote a book about the new Conjuring movie based on. Yeah, he's an interesting guy.
Oh, I love his stuff. He's another frequent flyer. It's just he's fun. I just love how he just bounces around the different topics, and we haven't done Smurl yet, so that'll be. I think we started to, and he had bad tech issues. So
no.
Yeah, that's just from his end. So,
oh no.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, get out of Florida. There's a hurricane coming. It's a problem. Anyway, so thank you, everybody. We shall see you tomorrow night on the Outer Realm, and I appreciate you all tuning in. Have a great afternoon and evening. And Jason, thank you again.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye, everyone. See you.